This is the December 15th monthly meeting of the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust. And in order to get us started, we'll do a roll call vote to open the meeting, starting with Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, present.
Rob Henry.
Rob Henry, present.
Ted Carr.
Ted Carr here.
Tom.
Mead is here.
Yep, and Steve Gomer is here. All right. Do we have Rob with us yet?
Not yet. I'm looking for him.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we do have Lauren here. So I'm going to, we'll move ahead in the agenda to cover Lauren Lind, Planning Director, who's going to give us an update. So Lauren, would you take it away?
Certainly. What do you want to hear about, or just a general planning update?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a couple of things to cover. You might want to give an update for anybody who didn't attend special town meeting on both the approval for the bylaw, the zoning bylaw consultant, as well as the measures that were brought forward and their results, and how they might affect broadly our energies.
Certainly, sure. So happy to update. So for those who weren't at annual town meeting, there were two zoning articles brought forth. One was relative to changing definitions for what is technically governed by the technical specifics of the planning board rules and regulations for common driveway. And the proposal was to sort of rescind that document as it is, to modify the document so that there are standards set forth for access regulations. The definitions were supposed to be current with state standards that are already existing. And it's kind of really what it is it's trying to turn gray areas of our bylaws around access regulations, common drives, and private road standards to try to put some sort of able way for the planning board to sort of regulate increased development on those roadways. So that was the intent of Article 6. A lot of discussion around it. It was ultimately tabled and returned back to the planning board for further study. I think there's a lot of people who are concerned in how this will impact private ways and, roadways, a lot of questions that, the public had, and we'd, beef up sort of education around our zoning initiatives as a result. So that was ultimately what happened with Article 6. With Article 7, it was what we've been calling Part 2 of land alteration. You saw Part 1 back at annual town meeting in 2020. And that one was around tree clearing. This portion of it was really around open face ledge protection for accessory structures, which are not things inherent to a primary structure like a residence, utilities, things like that. It really is focusing on accessory structures, thinking of pools, sports courts, et cetera, those kind of items. So that one actually ultimately did pass. And then in terms of the consulting item that was relative to zoning, there was a $75,000 grant towards a total rewrite of the zoning bylaws. We had a discussion back on November 8th in joint session with the select board and several of the land use boards. And it really comes back to the master plan adopted in 2019 has a series of over 20 zoning strategies and goals and things that are identified through that process. We also know that our zoning bylaws have not been updated, some portions of it in over 50 years, but the last major rewrite over even 30 years. So typically in terms of a best practice for planning and zoning, we recommend that, in communities typically who maintain these quite often, it's about every 10 years you think to do, a cleanup. And it really is, it's evident in our bylaws that there's a lot of things that are outdated. Laws have changed. Things are just, just either inconsistent. There's a lot of cleanup. And also because it's been amended so many times over the years, there's things that have, maybe there's some errors, some references that could be cleaned up. So overall, we know there's a lot of opportunity to just bring these bylaws up into sort of current standards and neaten and organize them in a way that's logical. There's also an opportunity to take a look at what was identified as topics of interest in the master plan. For example, things like climate change, looking at, sea level rise. There's opportunities for zoning there. It's been identified, people want to take a look at the harbor because in the harbor that is pretty small of a geographic area, there's 7 zoning districts there. So, there's a thought that, do we study it to potentially recommend some changes that would make more sense or perhaps foster development that the community wants to see. These are topics of discussion. So the way it's been framed is that we are planning to embark on a process to go out for bid for RFQ, to hear from some planning consultants who can help us with this process of a zoning rewrite. We know it's going to involve a lot of community engagement, and what we're anticipating is that it could be a process that would be phased, potentially in 2 phases. That one could undertake some of these sort of cleanup items and maybe a couple of pressing items that are policy related in the first section, and then there's more time to sort of set a plan and tackle the other policy items that really need substantial discussion and sort of a determination from the community. So that's what the process is going to entail, and that money is a portion of funds that are actually being sort of cobbled together through. We have some money from the state as well, and some ability through other funding pools existing in town to fund this program. So that is the plan for the RFQ. It's going to be issued in January. It will be open for the month of January, and then we will be sort of convening the process in February and March to pick hopefully a successful consultant. And what I would say in terms of what we can start to think about from a housing perspective in zoning is one that easily comes to mind for me is we've identified that our inclusionary zoning bylaw, the sort of formula for how you would do a payment in lieu is quite vague and a little, it's kind of complex because it's so vague. So that is something, for example, that from an affordable housing standpoint, we could clean up through zoning. And I'm sure there's other items that, of course we can get into, but that's just sort of one flavor of how this group and the steering committee might look towards contributing to the zoning bylaw portion of the rewrite.
So the natural question that comes forward from my end is that with respect to zoning as it affects affordable housing, what sort of input would be requested, or who would be otherwise making it with respect to some of those items? So within the current inclusionary zoning bylaw, there is no definition of what will constitute proper payment in lieu, and that's already caused some hiccups with a developer. And so, is this something that we should consider putting forward our positions on?
Absolutely. And, so the plan will be ultimately let me take a step back. We're going to identify what we want in the request for qualifications, sort of frame, this is what we want for public engagement. Here are some ideas that we've had, for example, surveying the existing boards and committees we have for sort of their areas or thoughts. Of course, it's going to involve public community input. But the thing is here is that what's the sort of the great part about going out for bid to this is that people are going to see what we need and hear our concerns and have time to interview with us. And then they're going to turn back and give us a proposal that is like, this is how, from my expertise in doing this in X community, this is how I'd recommend we do it here. So there will be, opportunity to pick someone who's really going to meet classic needs, but we know that it will include dialogue amongst our boards and committees, our area expertise, and the community as a whole.
Yeah, I just from our own experiences on payment in lieu and inclusionary language, I think it's incumbent upon the town to recognize that there are times when it's going to work to include affordable housing within the existing development, and there are times where, frankly, it doesn't make any sense to be adamant about the location. It makes much more sense to be adamant about the payment in kind. And I'm not sure how you legislate that, but that's why I was asking. It's our one small example has made that point pretty clear. So thank you very much, by the way. Ted, I'm sorry. You're muted, Ted.
Yep, thanks very much. So Lauren, thanks for great synopsis. Two things. One, an observation. The article that did not go forward was referred back to the committee. So I think that means that we could hear back about it as soon as the spring. There was a move I noticed to indefinitely postpone, which means it would have been really problematic for several years for that topic to be brought up. So I think we could see it back. I guess my suggestion would be going forward, want to see how everybody feels, but can we allot some time on our future agendas to discuss how we might engage in the process? Because I think it's an opportunity for us to sort of get forward on these, like what we're just talking about here, payment in lieu and things like that. So maybe we could set some time aside to, talk about it.
Yeah, Ted, I agree. The two things that are probably most influential to the potential success of the efforts of the trust are going to be money and bylaws.
Mhm.
Right? Because the bylaws are either accommodative or they're restrictive based upon land use, and so that's one area. And of course, through the magic of money, all things are possible, right? And financing is the other. So yes, it makes absolute sense to be engaged in it, which is, and I'm not sure at what point we bring this forward and insert ourselves, but I assume that it's going to be at some point after the RFP has been issued, or I should say the bid has been awarded. But yes, it absolutely should be part of our focus. So are there any other questions at the moment for Lauren?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Once they vote on it, then when does it take effect, the ledge ruling and things like that? Is that immediate, or when does it start?
So happy to address that. It's a little complicated because it needs to pass Attorney General review, which typically from the date of adoption and once the information submitted from the town clerk to the Attorney General, we see typically around a 6-month turnaround time until we get a notice from the Attorney General that yes, this is, go forward, this has been approved. But the way that zoning bylaws work is that once you get that notice from the Attorney General, approximately 6 months from the date of approval at town meeting, it goes into retroactive effect from the time that the bylaw was noticed and heard. So in this sort of 6-month period, it's kind of, it's interesting from a building perspective because you have to act as if it's in effect right now, even though we're waiting pending Attorney General approval. Though I will say that this was heavily vetted by council and we know it's been done in other communities. So we're not anticipating that it's going to get denied, but it's just sort of this interesting limbo in terms of the legality of it.
There goes my swimming pool.
No, you just have to have a hearing. You can still do it.
Like I said, there goes my swimming pool.
You can just have one of those kidney bean shaped ones around the granite.
Right.
Good luck with that in Cohasset.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Lauren. Any other questions for Lauren? I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to put this on the clock, but Tom has a hard stop at 9:30, as do I.
Sure.
I'm sure Lauren is, this is just about the time she's going to put her feet up on her desk. So.
Yeah, I do have a call to go to after this. So it's been lovely seeing you all, and I'm happy to come back and update throughout the zoning process as this unfolds or anytime that you need any information. So I will be in touch very soon, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Great.
Thanks,
Merry
Lauren.
Christmas.
Happy holidays to you. Yep.
Thank you very much. Same to you. Take care.
Take care.
Lauren was with us late last night too. So
Yes, indeed. Tonight's night 3 of 3. So wish me luck.
Okay, then.
Take care.
I see that John Hallen is not with us at this point.
He is not. I did invite him and send him an invite and everything. He's just been kind of out straight, but I can give you a quick synopsis that are the last year that he has been here, the building permits are actually going to be more than the year before. And even during COVID, we hit the same number of years as the year before. Building is pretty crazy. 390, we're still working through some hiccups on that. It's before planning going up tonight. We'll be actually January 5th. And I'm working with the owner now on a few things. And then 147, he's going to pull the permit at the last minute, just so that it doesn't clock and start ticking, but he is going to pull it soon. I'll see if I can get John to kind of meet with me and write me up a little synopsis so I can get that out to the trust. On
Okay,
those two.
and when you say 147 is
That's South Main Street, which is
No.
Shivo.
Right, right. But he's planning on pulling the permit prior to year end.
I believe so. I know that I thought he pulled the foundation permit, which starts the clock. So I'm going to double check that with John. I can actually look at it while we're chatting. I can look at the permits online.
Okay. That's a related topic to Cindy Amara's item coming up. Each of you, moving on to the next agenda item, each of you also received from Jen's note I'm stumbling around looking for it. Hang on just a second. The updated financials, which we'd requested. I don't know if anybody's looked at it. It's really more a line item budget, current expense, effectively telling us that right now our available trust balance is $866,000. All right. Now, something tells me that that's not current, because I have a sneaking suspicion that there's some bills that have been posted by by our esteemed legal counsel that may not have been processed against this yet.
I believe it is current. I haven't received any current bills, but
Okay.
so I think that is current. There's also a holding for 891 that will probably go back in that I held in the event I encumbered in case we did receive bills. So we got one. Cindy, we would get billed just singularly for the AHT. They don't lump that into the town bill, which I was just going through.
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Cindy.
no, you'll get your own bills for me. I have been on trial for a long while, it seems, and I've noticed that there are a stack of bills sitting on my desk, and I'm certain that there's one for you that's in there, but I don't think it's going to dramatically affect your balance.
Yeah, I'm eyeballing it, Cindy. I don't have any secret knowledge. I just I had looked at some of the past bills. This is for the current fiscal year, and you've been retained as of the current fiscal year. So I just, in my head, I had somewhere around $1,400 or so presented, and this says 810. So that's where, again, Jen, it's only in my head.
You're probably right. I just want to make sure, that right now we've paid everything we have, but you're right. There are bills coming.
Okay. Fair enough. So right now the trust is in good shape. However, just, keep in mind that we've got contingent liabilities against this. The biggest one is $75,000 contributed to Habitat for Humanity. And I believe we voted on this last time, Ted, the $5,000 donation that came from the movie production would also be additionally added to that mix. Is that correct?
As a donation, that's correct, and that passed the board.
Right. And finally, we've got if I remember correctly, we've got this upcoming side agreement with 147 with Shivo, which involves some element of cost. So we've got some things coming up that'll go against the trust. Okay, so just be aware of that. All right, now moving on, we'll Cindy, if you're ready, let's talk about the draft agreement between the trust and 147 South Main.
I apologize. This is going to be a very short conversation. I have not had a chance to get that drafted for you yet. I've been flat out crazy. I've spoken with Jen, I've got her minutes, and I can assure you I will have it to her before the end of this week. And
Okay.
I apologize.
Just so that the rest of the members of the trust know, it's my desire to make sure that this draft agreement is reviewed, and ideally, assuming that the review is favorable, that we vote to move on it, which is to say extend it to Shivo, the developer, before the end of this calendar year. That's tight, right? We got the holidays coming up. Everybody's got a separate schedule and so on. So Cindy, if you can get the draft agreement completed before or by the end of this week, Jen, I'll ask that you distribute it for review. I know I see Jen's on mute. There you
Yeah,
go.
no problem. I was just looking up the permits for you. So no, that's not a problem.
Okay, and that would then require each of you to take a look at it, make your comments back to Jen directly to avoid open meeting law violations. And if we can pull it off, have a 15 or 20-minute Zoom meeting next week or the week or the few days between Christmas and New Year's for at least a quorum. And if you can pull that off, that's great. If not, we're going to have to do it in January, but that just delays this, delays this development that much further. So, and no offense, guys, but I don't want to hear Rob Henry squawking in my ear anymore about how long this shit takes. And he's
Hi,
right.
John.
He's right. I mean,
I'm good. How are
Cindy,
you?
go ahead. Cindy, Amara.
Oh, sorry. I just had a question, and maybe I'm just fuzzy in this, but I don't know if you did this, but it's also something you can consider doing if you're comfortable doing. You can vote to send the letter subject to review according to the terms of the split of the money and the times. If you want to do that, then the board does not have to reconvene. You just need to all review and authorize the sending of it. That's another option. And I thought maybe that's what you had done, but I'm not clear.
All right. So I see Cindy Matheson thumbs up. Ted Carr as well. All right.
Hey guys, it's Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Just real quick. So I thought I thought the whole point of the amended motion last time around was that we agreed in principle on the bones of the agreement, and you, Steve, have the authority to finalize with Cindy and sign.
You're right. I'm getting older and I
My
forgot.
understanding too. That's my understanding too. That we don't have to have all this because we're pretty much in favor of it.
Well, forgive me here. I'm taking a look at the minutes.
They're on page 2.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, right. All right. Based on that, instead of retreading the same old ground, I propose we stick with what's already voted. Thank you, Tom. Your brain is much younger and more agile than mine.
He clearly read the minutes.
That's exactly what I was. Today is
That's
the
right.
day I actually reviewed them because I knew I was going to be in the car and I couldn't do it live.
And I was on the phone, so I couldn't say anything with John Hallen, but I was like, I think you can do it.
Okay, so anyway, we've already voted for the structure. So Cindy, please move ahead. Jen will distribute the draft to each of us. Make your comments back to Jen. We'll consolidate them. If there's anything material, then we're going to have to figure that out. And we've got the ability to move on it so long as there isn't anything material in your comments. All right. Good. Let's move on. Ted, this is the next item on the agenda is the update regarding the DHCD Chief of Staff, which you had pointed out last time. The Chief of Staff has moved on, but there's someone else in the office with whom you have contact. So go ahead.
Right, yeah, and I think at our very nice recognition event, a couple of us were together and we talked, informally. So so Mass Housing had been recommended that we speak with them about it. I did talk to somebody at Mass Housing. I explained what we were trying to do. It seems like they would support us with it. It has been recommended that we write a letter requesting a meeting to the Undersecretary at DHCD. She was a budget analyst when I worked there. career employee and highly competent. And so we could write a letter requesting what we do. It appears they do these now by Zoom. And we could do a Zoom meeting, us and them, to discuss what we'd like to do, and then they would opine and make a decision. But folks like Mass Housing, it's been recommended that we get folks like that to help to support our effort. But in a couple of conversations that I had about it was that this was something that I think would be seriously considered by many parties. And then the one thing I need to do is just catch up with Tom Mead, who I think had some recommendations on people at Mass Housing potentially. So Tom and I can speak off it. But basically, I think the nice news is nobody sort of jumped up and down that said, this isn't something you could probably do. I think we now, letter requesting a meeting is probably next. And then we can get some sort of what we affectionately call third-party validators that could get on board to help us support our efforts. So that would be my recommendation. And I'll just catch up with Tom offline about maybe potentially who the right people at Mass Housing might be.
You want to draft that?
No problem.
Okay. Feel free, fire away. And actually the same thing. Once you draft it, give it back to Jen.
We'll circulate.
She can distribute it. It's something that we, if she can distribute it to the members of the trust, make your comments, of course. If you're in favor of it, then I actually would go a little bit different than the past. I'd ask the board to consider the approval of the communication, right, pending review, such that that Ted, as vice chairman, could move forward on sending out this note as soon as is practicable. Okay. Again, just want to expedite things, right? I don't want to. If we can get stuff done in between our formal monthly meeting dates, just to move the process along, and we're not doing so in a way that avoids open meeting laws or anything like that, then I think we're going to start to gain some traction and make a little bit more progress. Okay, how do you feel about that, members of the trust? I'm sorry. How do you feel about that recommendation? Cindy Matheson, yes?
Absolutely.
I do, of course.
Okay. So anybody want to make a motion?
Go ahead, Rob.
I'm making a motion for Ted to go forward.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, I got to get more specific with you.
I know.
He's got to be able to put something on the document.
Ted'll write, draft the letter, circulate it, move this process as discussed forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe draft a letter requesting a meeting with blah, 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 relating to
Yeah,
subject matter.
whatever. Yeah. But definitely,
right.
That motion.
So what I
Got
hear
that,
is Rob Henry making a motion authorizing Ted Carr to draft a letter as vice chairman of the trust, requesting a meeting with Mass Housing. We are voting on contingent approval. I'm sorry, we're voting to approve this letter conditional to a review of the document.
And the letter would go not to Mass Housing, but to DHCD.
I'm sorry.
That's
My
okay. No
apologies.
problem.
Jen, did you get that amendment?
It's a point of
Goes to
clarification. I
DHCD?
thought you said you
I did. I thought it was going to Mass Housing as well.
So no, the letter would go to the undersecretary at DHCD requesting a meeting, regulatory, they're the regulatory body. Mass Housing would support our effort. So they
Okay.
would be included in the call, but the letter requesting the meeting would go to the undersecretary at DHCD.
So part of this motion doesn't have to mention Mass Housing that would support it or be part of this?
No, I don't think you do. I think Mass Housing is an example. I think we're going to get other people to get on board, like like the Housing Advisory Committee. I mean, we're going to line up relevant people as we make our case about why we want to do it. Mass Housing is just one. So I'm not sure you need it in this
Or do we
exact thing. Basically, it's I will draft the letter, I will circulate it for review, and we'll request the meeting.
Do we know the relevant people that, do we have a list of who we think should be the relevant people that we want included in all this?
It's a very good question. I think we know some of them, but maybe in part of my drafting, why don't, if you have some thoughts of who we might include once you send them to me, and I'll include it in my draft letter.
I'm not familiar with all the government,
Yeah.
people, but I think that if you are, I think it would be appropriate to at least include the ones you know of.
Yep,
So they're
definitely.
all part of this whole process.
Would, question for Diane in this, and Ted. Is it relevant and or useful to enlist the town boards for their endorsement or inclusion as supporters?
I think,
Ultimately,
yeah, go ahead, please, Diane.
you
I
know,
read it.
ultimately, but the practicality of doing that, you know, it's not going to happen at the select board level. I can tell you that. We're not meeting till January 4th.
Okay.
But let me give you an example, like Tom is the governor's appointee to our town's housing authority. So like the housing authority, I think would be very relevant to this discussion. So yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. Why don't I have a cut at the people to include and yeah. that
And
sounds
are you
good.
thinking just as like a seat? I mean,
It could just be a letter or they can participate in the meeting about why this, basically it's to amend our stock count. And so I think that, there are people that are going to share that interest in the town, and then there's people outside that have a relevant voice to that.
Like
And-
building a team in our favor. kind of.
Exactly.
you know, maybe at the very least, what you could do within the letter, or even just as a way of CCing it, you could CC the Affordable Housing Trust, you know, and note that Tom's our governor's appointee to the Cohasset Housing Trust, Diane Kennedy, Cohasset Select Board, so that we're there. It's almost a, we're projecting the support of all of us who are relevant in one way or another in the communities. And then, then going forward, depending on who we're going to need for the meetings, we can certainly, I'm sure the select board would do whatever you needed us to do in terms of supporting this. But in the interim, just to get this letter out, I think listing the trust members and even, Rob Jeffers as chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, just as CCing us, because that kind of implies that we're behind it.
Okay. So are we settled on that?
I am.
We got a motion on the table. Jen, do you have any idea what the motion is?
Ted's gonna draft a letter about this.
Yeah,
circulate it to the
I have
committee. We're gonna
notes.
get it out. Yeah,
No worries.
And you can go back and watch the tape.
and it's been moved and seconded.
It's just pure torture.
Yeah, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those, any further discussion? All right. All those in favor signify your aye vote. We'll start with Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Yeah, Rob Henry.
Rob Henry, I.
Diane Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Tom Mead.
Mead, aye.
Ted Carr.
Ted Carr, aye.
And Steve Gomer, aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ted. Next meeting dates, I believe we're back on schedule, Jen, correct?
Correct.
Second Wednesday of the month. So that is
Yes, January 12th.
January 12th. Thank you.
Can I ask one question just about scheduling? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, sir.
The in a prior meeting, we had discussed a couple of properties around town. I had a question, I think, for Cindy Mara. There was what are the exemptions to open meeting under if we had a executive session? Is one of them land acquisition or the discussion of contracts? Does anybody remember? Here's my thinking is there was something at town meeting, I think, as it relates to our prior discussion of those properties that we should talk about, but if it's something we want to do, I think I would, if it's acceptable, or not that I want to not talk about it in public, but I think from a negotiating position, I think it might be appropriate for executive session. So
Like we did before, the
like
exemption
we did
6.
before. Yeah. And if folks would be amenable to that in the category of scheduling, could we maybe have a short executive session about that?
Cindy?
Yes, I mean, in terms of, I thought Jen had answered it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's not really so much acquisition of property, but value of property. So
That's-
it's got the language, but for the topic of what you want to talk about, yes, you can do that in executive session.
Okay. Now, Cindy, that brings up another question. We're hoping to meet with the Board of Selectmen specifically about transfer of properties to the trust, two specific properties to the trust. Would that be, could that fall under executive session as well?
I think potentially it could be crafted in such a way that value of properties was a topic that if it was done in a public section, it could adversely impact your ability. For example, if you're talking about transferring the property and it's worth X, right? And it's done openly, then you might get someone who wants that property coming in and cutting you out. So I think it could be carefully crafted to be done that way.
There is one of the targeted properties where I do believe that that's a possibility. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but anyway, so thank you. That is helpful. All right, Rob Henry.
I know we mentioned this before. I think Tom, you and I have talked about it, I think at the town, what we call town party. Is there any more consideration to going live with these meetings rather than with virtual? Over at Wilcox? Maybe, I don't know. Right, Tom? We talked about that.
Yes, yeah, I'm a fan of in-person meetings, and I would, if we went back to in-person, I would show up.
Yeah, I think Ted, we talked about it too.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
I'm a huge live meeting proponent. It's just nothing better.
In that big room there, you can meet, you can be social distance and
with masks.
And with masks, whatever we have to do, I just think it would make us even more productive.
Yeah. Maybe unless something changes, we go for the January meeting in person if people are up for that.
Look, I'm okay with it. Unless the town board of health or the state puts the kibosh on it. I prefer it that way.
Yeah, many boards are starting to go back. The select board's meeting in person now. The school committee has been for a couple of months.
I think no reason not to, and then if things change, unfortunately, if things change, then we have to go back. Then we have to go back. But I just think at the beginning of the year would be a good time to make the transition.
Okay. So noted. As I said, I'm in favor of it, and I don't think this is something that requires a vote. It sure sounds like everybody present today would appreciate the ability to meet in person, dependent upon whatever restrictions might be applied by the town, county, or state health authorities. Okay.
I will certainly look into that for you. Masks are required in all town buildings at all times, as you know. I mentioned to Steve yesterday that we only have essentially that one meeting room. So every other committee is going to be trying, but I think our time frame, meeting at 8:30, should be okay. But we have to remember that Cindy's coming from far away, so it may make sense to let Cindy attend via Zoom at that meeting.
Yeah,
we could do a hybrid of some sort.
We can do a hybrid.
I would just put Cindy on my computer, or Lauren would put it on her computer.
Yeah. I mean, Cindy, how much fun is it to try to get to the South Shore at 8:30 in the morning?
Oh, it's something I dream about doing, but only if I'm going to the beach.
Yeah.
Right.
Strangely
My
enough,
caveat is, I agree. I'm a big fan of in-person meetings, and I will make every effort to be there. My only concern is if the weather is really bad, I'll participate by Zoom, but otherwise I'll be there. Give or take 5 minutes.
Yeah, and to everybody present, flex that out. Crappy weather, Zoom is a good backup. Okay. All right. Let's take up the minutes. Everybody who's read them already, raise your
I
hand.
think that's Tom.
Tom. Yeah, but I can't see Tom, so I don't know if he's raising his hand.
Yep, my hand is up.
All right. Are there any comments on the minutes?
I'd
Great.
like to move the minutes.
All right.
Tom Meadle, second.
Thank you. All right. Is there no further discussion? So let's go ahead with a roll call vote. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Tom Mead,
Tom Mead, aye.
Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
and Steve Gomer, aye. Minutes unanimously approved. Update on projects for planning and zoning. I don't know that we have any updates, do we right now, Jen?
We do not.
Okay.
Well, actually, we have some pending updates that I should mention to you. I'll be real quick. We have a couple of preliminary subdivisions coming in. I believe it's just for zoning freeze, whether they'll remain after Section 6 was defeated. Article 6 was defeated, I don't know, but they are coming in on Cedar Lane. I think they will remain. Black Horse Lane. So those are the two places that people have come in to put in a subdivision road.
Interesting. For Cedar Lane or Cedar Acres?
Cedar Lane.
Okay. Just a point of clarification. Our Article 6, though, was not defeated.
Well, no,
Yeah,
it was referred back.
Refer back to.
Go ahead.
No, after spending 60 hours on it, it felt defeated.
No,
In other words, it's not going into effect.
Right.
Anytime
It's not going
soon.
to affect. So now
Like
I need
years.
to figure it. Yeah.
It's
So
not going into effect, although I suspect that by the time it reappears at annual town meeting, because I believe that it can't, what do you mean, no?
It's not going to appear at annual town meeting. We had a discussion about this last night. It's going to be part of the comprehensive plan,
Review.
so it's going to be a
Okay.
while.
All right.
Oh, okay. All right. So they may be withdrawn, but they're just on the docket. So I just wanted to let you know, and that's all I have right now.
Okay. Well, when you say, so, I'm sorry, the term, did you use subdivision?
I did. Preliminary
So-
subdivision.
Yeah. So are we talking about potential units in each one in excess of a half a dozen?
No, I think it's more to freeze the right to build 3
Got it.
in one and 3 in another, I believe.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've already reviewed finances and bills. Any comments from members?
Happy
All right.
holidays, everybody.
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Right. All right. And I don't have any topics that we hadn't anticipated before we published the agenda. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right. One more time. Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Okay. Rob Henry.
Henry,
All right. Tom Mead.
Tom Mead, aye.
Hey, you got 15 minutes, Tom.
Yeah, nice one.
Ted Carr
Ted Carr, aye.
and Steve Gomer, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Oh, Diane, I'm sorry. I skipped right over. Diane Kennedy.
That's all right,
aye.
Steve.
Steve Gomer, aye. Hey,
I'm
listen,
sick of you too.
That's not the case. All right.
No, it isn't.
Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays.
All right,
Happy
everyone.
holidays,
Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Holidays,
Thank you.
everybody.
Take
Take
care.
care.
All right,
Take
we'll see you
care.
next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.